What's going on, guys? It's that time again, and I've got 5 more awesome builds for you guys to try out in the fog. These 5 builds are going to suit a variety of different play styles and situations, so depending on who you are and what you're here for, there's going to be something for you. So let's start off with the first build. The first build is what I'm going to be calling the Meta Flex. So these are going to be very strong, very impactful perks, very meta perks in Dead by Daylight's current meta. And why I'm calling it flex is because we're going to have a little bit of a flexibility for the last perk we're choosing for this build. So the perks, Dead Hard. Most of you guys should know this. If you don't, once you get hooked one time, whenever you're injured, you'll have the choice to hit the active ability button to go endurance mode for 0.5 seconds. If you take a hit during this time frame, instead of going down, you will actually go into deep wound, which means you will get to extend the chase a lot longer. Dead Hard is still a solid perk. You get to use it twice per game, but those two Dead Hard, especially if you do land them, it does take a little bit of effort to land your Dead Hards depending on your skill level. Once you get pretty used to it, Dead Hard is a really solid perk for keeping you in the game a lot longer. Now, Dead Hard pairs like bread and butter with Decisive Strike, because both of these perks activate whenever you get unhooked the first time. Decisive Strike will activate for 60 seconds. If during the 60 seconds the killer picks you up, you can hit a great skill check, and then you will be able to stun the killer for 4 seconds. Now, Decisive Strike will deactivate in the end game, and it will deactivate if you do any conspicuous actions, i.e. if you get unhooked and start healing someone or start working on the generator or doing something to progress the game, you will deactivate your Decisive Strike. But why these two work really good together is because it makes you pretty damn hard to tunnel off the hook. Once you get unhooked, you have Decisive Strike. So if you go down within the first minute, you take your built-in borrowed time hit, you go down, and then the killer picks you up, and then boom, you can stun the killer and keep extending the chase. Now, when you stun the killer, you will be dropped and you will be back in the injured state. So if you did take that built-in borrowed time hit and went into deep wound right away, so you couldn't actually use your Dead Hard the first time around, well, then after Decisive Strike, you can still use your Dead Hard. So both of these work really, really well together. And the third perk to round all these out is Adrenaline. Adrenaline activates in the end game. Once the last gen is done, you instantly heal a health state, and then you get a burst of speed for 3 seconds. This can help you in chase. Healing a health state is always valuable, especially if you're playing injured and just working on getting the gens done. You don't have to waste time healing because you'll get your heal when Adrenaline pops up in the end game. And you have Dead Hard to get you through in the meantime. So Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, very good combination. They're just very strong perk combination for preventing you from being tunneled and being able to extend the chase longer and waste more of the killer's time. Adrenaline, just an amazing end game perk that helps you heal and really get to a very strong position in the end game when your team's getting pretty beat up to get the exit gates and actually get your team out of there. Now, the last perk is a flex spot. There's a lot of different perks you could use in the slot that would work really well. If you want to play a little bit more elusive, I would recommend something like Distortion to block your aura. A very strong perk in today's meta, especially with all the aura reading perks killers are using. If you want to have just like the maximum amount of impactful perks, Deliverance would work really great. If you unhook someone at the beginning of the game before you get hooked, you get a 100% chance to jump off your hook. And if you do jump off the hook, you will probably get tunneled anyway. So Decisive Strike and Dead Hard will really help you out if you decide to go the Deliverance route. Bear in mind though, if you do get hooked first, you will get 0 value out of this perk. But if you do get value out of it, it's very strong. So Deliverance is very strong. Distortion is very strong. Deja Vu is very strong. If you want to just have a perk so you can focus on getting rid of the 3-gen and focus on doing the objective and not having to waste time looking for generators. Amazing, amazing perk choice. If you want to be a little bit more altruistic and help your teammates, will make it amazing. Unhook people, heal them in 8 seconds instead of 16. Or if you just want another really impactful niche perk that won't always get value, but sometimes when it does work off, you get crazy value. Unbreakable is always a solid choice. Increase your dying speed recovery speed by 35%. And if you do fully recover, and you can fully recover once per trial, windows of opportunity if you want more help with looping, finding pallets, vault locations, extending the chase longer and longer. I would say all of these are very viable picks for your meta flex build. That being said, guys, kind of just depends on your playstyle, but there's a ton of acceptable options for this last perk slot. So I'm going to leave it up to you to pick what you actually want to use for the last perk. Even Babysitter, once it's reworked, it's going to last for 30 seconds and be a really solid anti-tunneling perk to help your teammates. I highly recommend you use that too. Can't say enough good things about this build. The Metaflex, guys. Let's go into the next build. Okay, I think now is a perfect time to segue into this build. So this build has a lot of similarities to the Meta Flex build, as in we are using Dead Hard in this build, and we're also using Decisive Strike in this build for the same reasons we talked about before, but we can actually go a lot deeper into this combination of perks because of the other perks we're bringing. So we're actually bringing Made for this. Made for this doesn't see a lot of play anymore because it got nerfed. Now this perk only lets you run 3% faster when you are in deep wound. And if you finish healing another survivor, you'll get endurance for 10 seconds, which means if you're injured, you heal someone, you take a hit, you can go into deep wound that way because of Made for this, and then get your 3% speed boost. That's probably going to be the most unlikely way of you going into deep wound, but that's where the rest of these perks are going to come into value. Like we said before, Dead Hard, you take a hit, that will put you in that deep wound state automatically, causing you to be able to extend the chase even longer, because not only are you taking a hit with Dead Hard, but then you have that 3% extra speed, which actually does really help a lot when it comes to looping and extending the chase out further. And a lot of killers won't expect this because Made for this is definitely not in the meta anymore. So this build right here is the ultimate anti-tunneling build for sure. And then we've also got perks like Off the Record. So Off the Record will give you endurance for 80 seconds once you get unhooked. Also, your grunts of pains will be reduced 100%, and the killer won't be able to reveal your aura, so it makes you really, really hard to tunnel. So you might be wondering, why are we bringing Off the Record with Decisive Strike and Dead Hard? Well, here's the amazing thing about this build, guys. Off the Record gives you that endurance for 80 seconds. But we're actually bringing a basic medkit with us with a styptic agent. This, when used, will consume your medkit and give you 5 seconds of endurance. So this actually means on our first chase, before we even have Dead Hard, before we have Off the Record, before we have Decisive Strike, we can use our medkit, bring extra bandages with you. So this gives you a medkit that lets you heal yourself one time, and you have a little bit of charges left over to use the styptic agent. If you heal yourself, fine. If you don't, not the biggest deal. What we want to do is, in our first chase, after we take our first hit and get that distance, if you're in a spot where you think you're going to take another hit, just use your medkit, consume it real quick to get this 5 seconds of endurance, and then you take that hit, and then you will be able to get that 3% speed from Made for this on your very first chase. Now, if you don't pull it off on your first chase, as long as you still have this, you can always use it at any point after the first chase, but it's really funny to use this on your first chase, because then you get Made for this the first time around, second time around, third time around, basically at least 3 uses out of a game, potentially even more. Just make sure you're not super obvious when you use it. Make sure you try to like cut a corner before you pop that medkit so they don't see you consuming it to get your endurance. But usually this will work out just fine, and it's so great when it works out with Made for this. So first chase, medkit, burn the styptic agent, you get your Made for this. Once you get unhooked, you have 2 options. You can loop the killer, take that endurance hit with Off the Record, you'll get Made for this. If you still end up going down to 60 seconds, you'll get your Decisive Strike, be able to stab the killer. And then you will be out of endurance, or out of deep wound rather, so you can still hit the Dead Hard even after that. So the potential of like loopage and anti-tunneling here is crazy. So you can get unhooked, take your Off the Record hit, go down, Decisive Strike hit, keep chasing, take the Dead Hard hit, and you keep getting Made for this happening in between. Like, this build is nuts. I have so much fun whenever I run this build. This is the ultimate anti-tunneling chase build with just a bunch of really powerful, impactful perks for keeping you alive and extending the chase very long. All right, guys, this next one is a spicy twist on my favorite gen rushing build. So with all gen rushing builds, we're obviously starting with the Commodious Toolbox. This increases repair speed by 50%, which means you repair gens a lot quicker. Also, we can sabotage hooks 50% quicker too, so this build with this toolbox lets you have the ability to get sabo plays sometimes. Won't always get them, but when you do, it feels pretty good. Wire spools for 12 extra charges, and scraps for 8 extra charges, so 20 extra charges on this awesome toolbox. We're bringing Built to Last. Once we go into lock for 12 seconds, we can get 99% of our toolboxes back the first time. Second time, 66%. Third time, 33%. All in all, it lets us reuse our big, nice toolbox 3 additional times. Now we're also bringing Streetwise. This makes the build pretty cracked because this is already a really big toolbox. We already get to refill it a couple times. With Streetwise, we save 25% item efficiency, which makes this toolbox last so freaking long. You can literally use one toolbox to get through at least 75-80% of a gen with Streetwise. Now, here's the crazy part. Because you do gens a lot quicker with toolboxes, this will prompt you to get a lot more skill checks on a gen than you would normally get. You might think this might be a bad thing, but it's actually a really good thing, because when you hit skill checks, you get more gen progression. And when you hit great skill checks, you get even better gen progression. So we're pairing this with Hyper Focus. which will activate once we hit a great skill check. Now this build will take a little bit of skill to get used to hitting a great skill checks, but once you do, this build feels amazing. You hit a great skill check, you get a token. Each token increases your chances of getting skill checks by 4%, which is what we want. Increases the skill check speed by 4%, which makes hitting them a little bit trickier, but not the worst. And increases the bonus for getting those great skill checks by 30% of its base value each time you hit a great skill check. So this build, not only once you start doing work on a generator with this toolbox, you'll get so many freaking great skill checks. And if you hit your hyper focus, you'll just keep getting spammed with more and more. You can eat through gens so incredibly quickly with this. It does take some getting used to. And the best part about it is the last perk we're using, which is actually Fogwise. When you hit a great skill check on a gen, you see the killer's aura for 6 seconds. There is so many moments where you're getting spammed with skill checks and you're hitting your great skill checks back to back. You're getting stacks of hyper focus, shredding through the generator, but you also have permanent map hacks on the killer. So you know when the killer's coming to your gen, you can just walk around the corner, not leave any scratch marks, and dodge the killers easily. And you can always just keep constant tabs on the killer with Fogwise. This perk is amazing. It's slept on. It works like so well with this build, and it's so much fun. Now, the other obvious elephant in the room for amazing perks choice to use would be Stakeout. Now, I love Stakeout with this build a lot. And honestly, Stakeout fits amazing in this build. And if you want to use Stakeout, if you're not that great at hitting your great skill checks, Stakeout's a great choice for you, because every 15 seconds you're in the killer's terror radius, you'll get a token. Each token will convert one of your good skill checks to a great skill check while either healing or doing gens. And it'll also give you an extra 1% bonus to your gen repair speed. That's not that big of a deal, but what we do like about Stakeout is that it converts those good skill checks to great skill checks, because sometimes when you're trying to get your 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th stack hyper focus, it can get a little tricky. So having the insurance of 4 Stakeouts in the bank makes it to where you can get 6 stacks of hyper focus ridiculously easily. But the thing is, you've got to pick a perk that you're not going to bring with you. Now, if you want to use Stakeout, you can either get rid of Fogwise if you really don't care about the killer's aura that much, but trust me, Fogwise is so great with this build, and it feels really great hitting your great skill checks. I would probably, if I got rid of a perk for Stakeout, I would probably get rid of Streetwise. It hurts, but Streetwise, Hyperfocus, and Fogwise, those 3 perks work together so good. Like, trust me. Built to last, obviously, we need to get our toolbox back multiple times, but if you wanted to make it just a great skill check build where you use your toolbox only one time, you could also just get rid of built to last and put in like Streetwise with Stakeout. Have fun with it. The main perks you really need here is just hyper focus. But yeah, have fun with this build, guys. Like these 5, I wish if we had 5 perk slots, these 5 would go together so damn well. Like it hurts me that I can't put them all together in just one build. But right now, I'm really liking this setup the most. This one's like the maximum efficiency for doing gens and keeping tab on the killer's aura. Because trust me, guys, it's like it feels so good to see the killer's aura popping up every time you're hitting great skill checks. It just makes this build feel really rewarding and really satisfying to use. So try it out for yourself, guys. It's a great skill check gen rushing build. Okay, guys, next on the list, we have a really fun anti-slugging boon build, okay? So we're bringing a Bloodsense map. It's basically the exact same, more or less, as the Rainbow map. So use the Rainbow map. This is the best one. It gives you the ability to track basically everything in the game within an 8-meter range. But what you want to do with the map is you want to add on one add-on to increase the range of your tracking ability. So Odd Stamp will give you 12 extra meters, which will make it really easy to track items. Specifically, what we want to track with this build are totems. For the second add-on, you can use the crystal beads, which lets all of your survivor teammates see the aura that you see whenever you channel the map. This can help uncoordinated teams be more coordinated and find gens. Really useful if you want to be useful for your teammate. If you want to max out in the tracking range, bring the unusual stamp. If you want to save some of your consumption, you can bring like the jelly. Not the biggest deal. The main thing you want is the odd stamp. Second add-on, not too important. Now we're using Boon Exponential. This boon, once active, anybody who's slugged in the dying state can recover 100% quicker. So instead of 32 seconds, they can get up in 16 seconds, and they can recover from the dying state completely well. So this alone makes you create a sphere of anti-slugging. Now, to put up a boon, you have to go and bless a totem, in case you don't already know that. So we're using Boon Exponential. So we're using with Boon Exponential because whenever there's a boon on the map, everyone expects it to be Circle of Healing. So if you use boons and don't have Circle of Healing, it's kind of like WTF, what are you even doing? So obviously we're bringing Boon Circle of Healing too. Boon Circle of Healing is still an amazing perk. Everybody in the boon will heal other people 100% quicker. No, you can't heal yourself anymore, but you can still heal up and reset your team really quickly, because when you're injured in the Boon Circle of Healing radius, all teammates will see your aura, or you'll see your injured teammate's aura, so you can go heal your teammate. It doesn't take that long. You heal them in 8 seconds instead of 16 because of Boon Circle of Healing's healing. So with Boon Circle of Healing and Boon Expo, you already have a very powerful zone. And that zone is just, you can reset your teammates really quickly. And if anybody goes down and chase, like if you boon in like a really good spot, like there's some buildings where there's like a totem on the 2nd floor, or the totem is just really out of the way for the killer to go get, you can just have so much fun just like annoying the killer, making sure they keep people slugged on the ground while you're harassing them, and just trying to distract them so people can get Boon Expo value. I've had some hilarious games with this build, just using Boon Circle of Healing and Boon Exponential. And the part about it that's a lot more fun is that we're actually using it with Plot Twist. So Plot Twist, when we're injured, we can intentionally put ourselves into the dying state. By itself, this perk is already great because you can heal yourself in the dying state, and then when you do heal with Plot Twist, you will be instantly healed completely, and you get a 50% haste for 4 seconds. So nice little burst of speed there. And then once the exit gates are powered, you can use Plot Twist a second time. So the reason we're bringing Plot Twist is because if there is no teammate to heal us within our boons radius, we can just plop on the ground, use Plot Twist, heal up 100% quicker with Boon Exponential, so we can get our heal off way quicker, which feels really good. So this is a solid way for us to heal ourselves. We can do it within the boon radius. We don't have to, but it works really nice with Boon Expo. And we're also bringing tenacity, just because this whole point of this build is like an anti-slugging build. This lets us crawl 150% faster when we're in the slug state, and we can also heal while we're slugged. So it's just hilarious putting yourself in the down state with Plot Twist, and then just having tenacity so you can still crawl around and like do stuff. And then even if you get like slugged, let's say you don't Plot Twist down and you get slugged in the boon radius, sometimes tenacity can make the difference between the killer losing track of you. So you actually have those 16 seconds of time to get up with Boon Expo. Works really well with this build. But now I get it. Some people might not be feeling tenacity. So if you're not feeling tenacity with this build, which I highly recommend you do try it with this build, it's really fun, you could use the 3rd best boon, which is Boon Shadow Step. Now Boon Shadow Step is a great addition to this build because it will block all of the auras of all survivors in this radius from all aura reading abilities. And also you will not leave any scratch marks when you're running in your boon area. And this effect will linger 4 seconds after leaving the boon, so you'll still have a little bit of coverage. This makes it to where wherever you boon, it's an incredibly safe area for all survivors. So you can use Boon Shadow Step, and then you have a really amazing boon that you set up on the map because you have aura blocking, extra healing, recovering from the slug state. For your 4th perk, if you're doing it this way, you can keep Plot Twist. It still works for the reasons we discussed with Boon Expo, but then you can kind of make this like a flex slot like we talked about with the meta flex build. So you could use something else. You could use like Deja Vu if you want to just be a Deja Booner, you know, like go find the 3 gen, put up a boon next to those 3 gens, and then just work on hammering out the 3 gens under the safety of your boon. If you do use Shadow Step, I probably would swap out the beads for something like the Unusual Stamp to get the 28 meters of tracking, because a lot of times if you're running Shadow Step and you're playing within your boon radius, you will usually stay alive. Like you could do something like Boon Shadow Step with like light-footed, so you don't make any noises when you're running around. It makes you really hard to track, really hard to find. And odds are, if the game goes south, you'll be the last survivor alive. So then you can use your map to track the hatch in the end game with the 2 additional range add-ons. That gives you 28 meters of ability to track where the hatch is at. So hopefully you can find it before the killer closes it. Another really cool thing you could do with this build, try it out for yourself, guys. The anti-slugging boon build, or if you go with the Shadow Step Deja Vu route, then it's the Deja Booner. Amazing, amazing, really fun boon builds. Make sure you bring your map so you don't waste time looking for the totems. And I think I said that's why we bring it. Yeah, we bring in the map so we can find the totems easily and effortlessly. All right, guys, and the last build on the list is just this really fun, like don't leave any kind of scratch marks build. So the whole point of this build is just to be really light on your feet and not leave very much intel for the killer to track you by. So we've got Fixated. This lets you see your own scratch marks at all times and walk 20% faster. I like this perk with this build because we're doing a lot of weird things with our scratch marks. First of all, with lightweight, our scratch marks fade 5 seconds quicker than normal, and the spacing becomes incredibly inconsistent for the killer to track. So your scratch marks will be way more staggered, so it's not going to be as linear of a line for the killer to track you when in chase. And also, you won't leave your scratch marks nearly as long as if you've never watched your scratch marks, use fixated, and then you'll become hyper aware of how scratch marks make it easy for the killer to track you when you're running. So you'll have a much better idea of when you should be walking, when you should be running. And then when you use fixated with lightweight, then you will be extra aware of how beneficial having scratch marks fade faster can be, and how you can actually kind of use this to outplay the killer. In some niche situations, let's say you run into the shack, you might see your scratch marks pan over to like the left or the right because of fixated, so then you can use your walking speed to stop leaving scratch marks and walk the opposite way. Sometimes you could do cheeky little plays like that. And when that happens, it's really fun. But we're also using light-footed, which is, it just feels really good. Once you start running and not making any footsteps while you run, you kind of feel like just this ultimate really sneaky light on your foot person. Not only are we leaving very little scratch marks, but we're not even making any noises when we run. And then the last perk we're using is sprint burst. Lets us run really fast for 3 seconds, and we're exhausted, but it doesn't deactivate light-footed. Light-footed deactivates when we do a rushed action, like a fast vault or something like that, or if we we get injured and lose a health state. So the really cool thing with this build is to just be like working on gens, and when you hear the killer's target radius, just walk away, don't leave any scratch marks with fixated. If you go around a corner and the killer comes to check the gen, you can just sprint burst and use light-footed and just run out of there, and the killer will have no idea that you even ran away because you're not making any noises with your footprints. Really fun sneaky build to use. For items, I highly recommend just using a flashlight with this build, because sometimes you can get pretty cheeky little flashlight saves because you're not making any footsteps with light-footed, so you could be really close to the killer, running behind them, trying to track them before they do the pickup animation. Then maybe, or just keep your sprint burst ready, then maybe run out with sprint burst to try to get a flashlight save. Probably the item that works best with this build. Does it really do anything too crazy? Not really, but it is really fun to use, so I recommend giving it a go. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed these 5 amazing builds I've shared with you. If you did, smash the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the family if you're not already part of the family. And I will see you guys all the next time. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And if you want more Survivor videos, there's plenty on the channel. Go check them out. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.